All right, welcome to Behind the Sermon and More. I'm really excited about today's episode. We've got some friends here, Brett and Carrie, and we're going to talk about Foster Care Awareness Month, which is the month of May. And so, Brett, Carrie, thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
Great to be
Awesome. Hey, want to ask you a quick question, just so everybody that is listening, we have dozens of listeners, so I want you to know that. Just so everybody that's listening can know who you are. Just introduce yourselves to us and tell us a little bit about your family.
Okay. Well, we are Brett and Carrie. We've been married for 30 years. It'll be 31 in August.
Awesome.
We have 4 amazing kids, 3 biological and 1 through adoption. Our oldest, Allie, is 28, and she married an awesome guy named Trey, and they live here in Carrie and gave us our first grandson, who will be 2 in August. Our second child is Noah. He's 26. He lives with his beautiful wife, Emily, in Charlotte. And then our third biological daughter is Emmeline. She'll be graduating from Liberty University in
Go
3
Flames.
weeks. Go Flames. Yes. Yes, I see
We
that.
saw that, absolutely.
Yeah, so she's 22 and she'll be coming home. And then last but certainly not least is our little Maisie Grace LaCourse, who will be 7 in August.
Awesome. Ball of energy too, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
She is.
Awesome. What a great family. Yeah. So, man, I love that. Okay. So you guys were just telling me you moved here from New York.
Yes.
Did you like raise your kids there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we actually met in high school
Okay.
in upstate New York.
Okay.
So it's in Syracuse. So we've lived either in Syracuse or in a suburb of Syracuse for our entire lives up until about 2 years ago.
Wow.
When we decided to move to the Raleigh area.
Yeah.
Primary reason for that is we were trying to get closer to our older children
Okay.
who moved south and said that they're not going to come back north. And
Yeah,
we wanted
yeah.
to be close to Allie and to Noah.
Awesome.
And at the time, Allie was in D.C., Noah was in Charlotte with their spouses.
Wow.
And God is good. Allie and her husband Trey and our grandson are now in Carrie.
Yeah.
So
Right next door.
Just amazing. Yeah.
Man, that's so awesome. That's God's providence, right? Like you were just wanting to get a little closer, and you got a lot closer.
Hey,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Come on, that's awesome. Well, now you're members at Apex Baptist Church.
Amen,
Right?
yeah.
So, how did you end up here?
There's a great story behind that. So we, again, trying to figure out where we wanted to ultimately end up, we decided on Raleigh. And mind you, we have never looked for a church before, ever.
Right,
So
right.
we dated in high school, and Carrie's father was the pastor of the church.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
so I started attending that church shortly after we started dating, and we were there for over 30 years.
Wow.
In a great church. It's a Baptist church in New York. For those people that may not know, there are Baptist churches
There's
in
not
New
many,
York.
right? I mean, truly, there's not many, right?
No,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, comparatively, right?
Comparatively,
Like,
yeah,
comparatively.
Gotcha.
But we were blessed to have a great church there. So it was somewhat, it was a very unique experience for us as we moved here looking for a church. Well, my parents live in Tennessee.
Okay.
And they had moved, a little over a year earlier than us, and they were talking to their pastor, mentioned that their kids are moving to the Raleigh area, and he said, "I know of a great church, Apex Baptist." It
Yes.
was the former pastor,
John Mark. Yeah.
and he recommended. And what was amazing is we got here and we met you the first week we were here. We got a chance to meet you, and you had mentioned. Village 127.
Yeah, that's right.
And that was just amazing to us to know there was that sort of a support group here at Apex.
Yeah, I remember that meeting. I remember us talking through some of that. Yeah, you'd introduced Maisie to me, and I remember telling you about our ministry with Village.
Yeah.
And it was really cool to see you back the next
Yeah.
week.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
the next
Great.
week. So it was really awesome.
And
Yeah.
it was one of those things we said we're going to give it, a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Let's come, 3 or 4 weeks,
sure.
and really it just became evident quickly that we wanted to join, and it was now a question of how can we get connected into a life group to start meeting people,
Yeah.
and how can we serve? Where are we best? Where has God gifted us, and where are some areas that we can plug in to be a part of this
Yeah.
church?
Well, we love you guys. We're so glad you ended up here. That's
Yes,
awesome.
we are
So your
too.
parents live in Knoxville.
They do.
And
Well,
they go,
just outside.
okay,
Yeah.
and they go to John Mark's church.
They
I'm
do.
guessing- yeah,
They
that's
do.
amazing, man.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so awesome. I remember you making that connection with me. I'd forgotten about it until just now. early on. I think you had told me that story early
Yeah,
on.
I did,
And
yeah.
John. So I didn't know John Mark at all until I'd gotten here, and then we became friends because I just we'd reached out to one another. He wanted to know how's it going at Apex as a new pastor, and I wanted to know, man, what was it like when you were here? And he's helped me like think through some things, and he's just an incredible brother, incredible pastor. Sorely missed by our folks when he left. It was a really challenging thing, but man, he's thriving where he is. And I count it as like God's providence just to be able to meet him, have met him. Like I probably would not. I mean, just in my own brain, would not have if I had not came here. And he's just become a really good brother to me. So I love that your parents are at this church, man.
Yeah,
I think that's awesome.
it's great. But we're so thankful for this church. Really, it was a very easy transition for us.
Awesome,
Just
man.
people are friendly. There's just a common mission, and
Yeah.
we're really blessed.
Man, thank you for saying that. Praise God. Awesome. Well, here's a fun question. How would you describe yourselves as a couple?
Ooh,
31 years of
31
marriage.
years, yes.
How would you describe yourselves?
I would say friendship and teammates. Having known each other for so long, Brett is clearly my best friend, and
Yeah.
we just love spending time together. In fact, when we moved here, I was telling a friend that we were both going to be teleworking in the same house and pretty much together all the time.
Yeah.
And she said, "You're going to get sick of each other." And I said, honestly, we don't. We just, maybe he gets sick of me. I don't, I'm not sure, but I don't get sick of him. So we're
That's
best
awesome.
friends, and he's really good at, especially with raising a family. He can sense when I've hit my limit and need a break and steps in, and he's just a great teammate and partner.
Come on.
Yeah, and I would just add to that. It's neat when you have a marriage that you have a common goal of spiritual fruit.
Yeah.
And I can look at my life and see areas where Carrie has been convicted and kind of moved our hearts in a direction where I've been able to benefit. Just having a wise wife
Yeah, man.
that can be help me make decisions.
Yeah.
And man, what a blessing. So yeah, I would say best friends. It's with work sometimes I'll go and visit a place and it's neat to be there, but you're like, something's missing. It's not the same without her being there, experiencing that.
Come
with
on.
me.
Oh, I love to hear that. That's awesome. And you married a PK. Come
I
on.
know, right?
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
And you still made it. Yeah. It gives me hope for my kids,
Sticking
man.
around.
Gives me hope for my
That's
kids. I love it, man. Not only is this a foster care awareness podcast, but it's also a marriage podcast. So I
There
want
you go.
everybody to listen.
Amen.
Like, best
All right.
friends it's really important. It's really important, man, to be able to enjoy spending time with one another. My wife and I we're behind you guys in time, obviously, but we've only been married 21 years. But we've experienced the same thing of, man, the importance of cultivating and developing that friendship. It's just so important, just desiring to be around that person, right? It's like, I want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
I miss you when I'm not around you kind of thing. Because you're my friend. Like,
Yeah.
I love that you're my friend. And obviously that blossoms. So I'm grateful for, man, the testimony of your marriage, 31 years and going strong. That's awesome. I love to hear it. All right, cool. Hey, I got a few questions I want to ask you about foster care. Before I dive in, can you give us just like a snapshot of your story? Our people want to know your fostering adoption story.
Well, Carrie would say that her started long ago. Her started when she was a teenager. She kind of had this sense that she wanted to adopt someday.
Yeah.
And life kind of took over. We had our own kids kind of treading water at times, and it got put on the back burner. But I don't really remember talking much about that.
Okay.
Early on in our marriage, when our daughter Emmeline, so our third oldest, was a sophomore or a junior in high school. We're getting close to the empty nest stage.
Okay.
We had someone visit our church, and it was a pastor who had done adoption,
Wow.
foster care and adoption, and he had a message for our congregation, and candidly, I don't remember much about the message, but what I do remember is the car ride home with Carrie, because she was, hey, what'd you think about the sermon today? And then she proceeded to tell me that she had a chance to kind of pull him aside after after church and ask some questions
Oh, wow.
and get some clarity on some things that she wasn't sure about.
Yeah.
And, candidly, I did what I think other men would do in somewhat of a panic there, not necessarily wanting to have this conversation. I said, well, maybe we should should pray about it.
Yeah.
And I wish I could
Yeah.
say that was, completely through a spiritual lens, but a lot of it was kind of kicking the
Sure.
can down the road a little
Yes.
bit. Like, oh, that kind of came out of nowhere. I don't know how to
Yeah.
quite digest,
Yeah.
that concept. But it was, it was an interesting conversation. And then I don't know if you want to take over with. We were doing a marriage class. We were actually teaching a marriage
Wow.
class at the same time at our church.
Wow.
And do you want to talk about Francis Chan?
Yeah, so in our
Yeah.
preparation for this class, we picked up some resources, and one of the books we picked up was a book by Francis and Lisa Chan called You and Me Forever.
Yeah.
A great book about marriage.
Familiar
And
with that, yeah.
the introduction to the book talks about how often Christians are paralyzed by fear, and they tend to err on the side of inaction. And then he actually wrote in the book, for example, if you're feeling your heart tug towards adoption, why not err on the side of action, since God has commanded Christians to take
Wow.
care of orphans? And we were both reading it, and I remember looking at him, and he looked at me, and I'm like, wow, that just mic drop,
Wow. In your marriage book.
Yeah.
in our marriage book, as we
Out
were
of nowhere.
preparing for, we weren't even thinking about, fostering an adoption at that point. I mean, it was always on my heart, but it was kind of at the back burner. And I had been praying that the Lord would change Brett's heart and not make it my idea. It needed
Right.
to be a team thing. We're a family, and it was going to affect our whole family. So I started praying that the Lord would just open Brett's heart and make him his desire match my desire. And so when we read that, Brett looked at me and said, well, what's the first step? And so we did some research. We pulled up the DSS website and found out that there was an informational meeting at our local library, and that was just like 101,
Okay.
just like find out what we need to do. And I remember showing up at that meeting and walking in and looking at the people sitting around the table. There were maybe 5 or 6 other people there. Some were couples, some were singles, and they were just ordinary people. Like I was expecting I don't know, super ordinary people, but they just looked like average people, and they
Yeah.
were all there for various reasons. And I remember leaving that meeting, and I said to Brett, we can offer things to this family that some of these others might not be able to offer these families, and that's Jesus. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could partner with a birth family and help them to be successful in their parenting and to kind of mentor and support them? Because when our kids were coming up, we had grandparents, we had aunts and uncles, we had any number of people that we could have called if we needed a babysitter or we needed somebody to, take the kids for a bit. Some people don't have that option, so we thought, what a great way to share Christ by helping a mom that's in crisis and kind of surround her with love and show her the love of Jesus, and also helping to parent her kids while she's not able to. And
Yeah.
so that kind of launched us into this might be a very cool thing for us.
Wow.
Yeah, and for us, taking small steps was key. To Carrie's point, the fear, instead of just being kind of stuck in that fear, why don't we just take a step
Yeah.
and see where it leads? And that step was, first of all, the orientation meeting.
Yeah.
But then we decided to actually get certified to become a foster family.
Okay.
And I remember at the time, my heart certainly had been changing, but I was still a bit skeptical, because I remember driving to the first meeting thinking, they're going to make this seem really easy. They're going to, because there's a big
A
need
need,
for
sure.
foster families.
Sure.
So
Mhm.
they're
Yeah.
going to downplay the significance of the step that we're taking.
Yeah.
But it was anything but that.
Wow.
This is not a Christian organization. This is Onondaga County in upstate New York. And they were as real as it comes, right? They had lots of stories to share, and they said it can be really difficult. We don't want people to just sign up without
Yeah.
knowing. And but the fact that it was an opportunity for us, like we saw this as a way to become maybe an aunt and uncle to a family that didn't
Right.
have the support system that we had. And as Carrie said, both sets of our parents supported us, brothers and sisters and their families. I have aunts and uncles in the area that we're super close to. And the more I realized that other people didn't
They don't
have
have
that,
that,
the more I was convicted to say, we can do something.
Yeah, man.
And let's take a step, and we can always kind of monitor that. So we went through all of the different classes. We became certified. We did the home inspection, and then you wait for
Yeah.
your phone to ring.
Yeah.
And the first call we got was a little boy that came. He's what, three,
Three.
3 years old.
He was a hurricane.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were not prepared for
Like, welcome.
his level of activity. Because, mind you, our youngest was 15, so we were kind of
Yeah.
out of the baby stage. And this little man came into the house and he immediately started climbing up the banister. And I remember
wow.
looking at Brett thinking, what are we going to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
But his placement was a week.
Yeah,
And,
that's great.
he was only with us for a little while. And I remember at the end thinking, Lord, we didn't even really talk to extended family. They just, it was a temporary solution.
Yeah.
We cared for him for a week, and then he was off. And we were thinking, what was the benefit of that?
It wasn't our goal, and
wasn't our-
we weren't able to minister to his mom very much.
Right. Certainly there was a short-term benefit, but what was
Long-term,
long-term,
yeah.
right. So then we got a second call.
And I got the call at work one day. The social worker on the phone said, we have a 1-year-old little boy, and his mama was just taken to the hospital, and his brother was delivered by emergency C-section.
Wow.
So we need immediate placement for the 1-year-old, and then we'll have a newborn as soon as he's released from the NICU. And mom was in a very bad state.
Okay.
They weren't sure she was going to make it.
Oh, wow.
And so I said, well, I'm going to have to check with my husband because we'd signed up for 1 infant. We weren't prepared for 2.
Yeah.
But hearing this woman's story just broke my heart. And so I called Brett, who was also at work, and I said, told him the spiel. And I remember he said to me, how can we say no? And I said, I agree. So I called the social worker back and I said, yep, we can take him. And that evening they dropped off this precious little 1-year-old, tiny little boy.
Ghana.
And from Ghana, yep.
Wow.
And we cared for him. And about 2 weeks later, we were able to meet his brother in the NICU. He was about 4.5 pounds. And his name was Baby Boy because mom was still unconscious. She was not able to name him. And so we brought him home from the hospital, our tiniest baby out of the 3 that we had bio. They were all 8 pounds. He was like half that. And we just fell in love. But our world turned completely upside down. We went from having, a 15-year-old to having a newborn and a 1-year-old. And I was still working. Brett was working. We're getting up at night, feeding a baby. And our church community and our family was amazing. I mean, we went to a small little church. There were no rap teams set up, but they just kind of organically produced a rap team and started bringing over cribs and meals and offering to babysit and dropping off toys. And it was just amazing how our community just surrounded us and helped us get through that very, very difficult few months.
Wow.
And at the same time, we're getting little tiny bits of information about the mother. And sometimes we're getting information that she's not doing well and they're not sure she's going to pull through. And so we went from, this kind of temporary care, building relationships to, okay, now what do? Are we going to be adopting 2 little boys? And so we started, this is a much longer story, but we started to get to the point of saying, if that's this, if this turns out the way it sounds like it may, we're going to adopt these boys. And very long story short, the doctors decided to turn off all of the life-saving machines that she was connected to and said she was either her body was going to fight and she was going to survive or she would pass. And miracle, she pulled through, didn't, when she regained consciousness, didn't even remember being pregnant.
Wow.
Just an amazing story. And so we got that call once she recovered to bring the boys back to her. She was in a women's shelter at the time. And I remember bringing these 2 little boys who now we were really close to. It's been 4 months.
Yeah, I was
we
gonna
were
ask how long.
really,
Okay,
really attached to these little boys and just being devastated. There's a degree of pride thinking, look what we have to offer them. We've got a room for them. Things that in the scheme of things aren't that important, but in my mind, I'm like, we could care for these boys, and we're bringing them back to a 1-bedroom women's shelter, and just we handed these boys over, and that's as a man, I can't say that I have had many moments of just sheer breakdown, and that was one of those moments, just feeling like helpless, like what's going to happen to these boys. That was really, I can't describe how difficult
Yeah.
that moment was as we pulled away thinking, are we ever going to see these boys again? And but God had just an amazing plan.
Yeah.
We're not sure the exact timing.
It was either, I think we dropped them off on a Saturday, and Saturday evening, I got a text message from their mom.
Okay.
And we'd been texting back and forth because we'd set up visits with her.
Okay.
And she texted me out of the blue and said, would you be willing to pick me up for church on Sunday and
Oh,
take
no
me and
way.
the boys to church? And Brett and I were just overjoyed. We're like, yes, I couldn't text fast enough. Absolutely, yes.
Wow.
And that started a beautiful friendship with her. We would pick her up every Sunday. She'd come to church with us and come home and have lunch. And we would babysit for her. She started working. And it was just a beautiful friendship where we were able to do exactly what we'd intended to do, which was to partner with her to make her successful. And we still keep in contact with her today.
No
She
way.
lives in a different state, but we
doing well.
near
We're
and
so
dear to
proud
our
of her.
hearts. But
on.
when we sent the boys back and to their mother, Brett and I looked at each other and said, wow, we just need a little bit of a break. So let's call social services and tell them we don't want to be on the active list. We want to be put on what's called the respite list, which is, it's basically like babysitting for other foster families. So if they need to go out of town and they need somebody to watch the kids, you could take them for a weekend. It's much more temporary in nature. And so we got our first call in August for 2 little girls, a newborn and a 1-year-old. And we're like, well, we've already done that. We have
Yeah.
all the equipment for 2 babies. So we took in these 2 little girls for a couple weekends in August, and then a couple weekends in September. And then October 1st, the social worker called and said the newborn needs to be placed in foster care, and we be willing to take her. Because the mom who was caring for them was a single mom and couldn't handle the 2 of them and could only keep 1. So we knew this little baby. We'd met her a few times. And so we said, well, we're not a pre-adoptive home, but, we fallen in love with her and absolutely we'll take her in. And so October 1st of 2019, little Maisie Grace came to our home as a 2-month-old baby girl. And according to the Lord's plan, she never left. And so 2 years later, we adopted Maisie into our forever family. And where we started was the 1 step, and God had a totally different plan.
Man.
And Brett and I often say, if we had seen the end, we probably wouldn't have taken that first step because it would have been scary, but God knew as a gentle shepherd, just leading us a little bit at a time. And each time we're like, okay, we can take another step. We can take another step. And boy, what a blessing that we did, because she's just a super special little girl that just brings such joy to our family, and we can't imagine life without her.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's been great.
It's incredible to think about how the Lord, you talked about that next step that God was prompting you to take, and just that sensitivity to the Spirit's leading in that. And it's amazing how foster care moved from something that was out there, a possibility, need to learn more, to something that you started feeling a deep calling towards. And then almost immediately, like the Lord began to write some deep stories into your heart by placing these children in your care. And I can't imagine like some of the emotions that you both of you have felt throughout this journey, as you describe like moments that you recall where it's like we got a call where the mom's may or may not make it. She may or may not live, and we're not prepped for 2. We're only prepped for 1, and now we're like it's almost like you're constantly on a pivot, right? And so you're dealing with the practicalities of that, but also trying to steward your emotions too, and then the attachment that naturally comes alongside of that. So much to be said about the need to depend on the Lord in that process, and I'm just really grateful that you took that step. You heard the sermon, read the marriage book that was talking about the sermon that's dealing with fostering and adoption, and understand the dismissive, like, let me pray about it, Brett. Like, I totally get that, because I think there's so many times that I've done that in my own heart too, of like, I sense the Lord maybe doing this, but let me just pray about it. And I'm not speaking for you, speaking for me. So many times I don't have plans to pray about it. I just needed to say that in the moment so that my integrity feels like it's intact. But in reality, God's doing something. He's stirring. And it sounded like in that stirring, man, what God was doing is he was writing a far bigger story that included Maisie Grace. And you could have never seen that.
No.
You would have never guessed that.
No.
But in God's sovereignty and his providence, he just, man, he called you into this journey. So a question that I have for you is, what's one part of the foster journey that people don't usually understand? They don't usually see. They don't usually understand. Can you maybe articulate some of that? Like what's a part that you'd say, hey man, like if you're considering this, or you're just, maybe in the process of you've taken a few of those steps in the process of doing it. Here's something that maybe you don't see or maybe you don't understand that on this side of the fence you can now talk about.
Well, I know I was very naive when it comes to trauma. I remember sitting through those classes that DSS offered and listening to all the different behaviors and thinking, well, we've signed up for an infant, so if we get them as a baby, we're going to get them before any of that trauma takes effect or affects their brains. And yet, parenting now a child from a hard place, we are learning, and through the Village 127 community, which we didn't have in New York, so we didn't have any idea what brain development is in a baby, but learning that trauma begins at conception. That mom that's carrying that baby and she's under high levels of stress, she might be depressed or using substances. That brain development can affect a child and will affect a child for the rest of their life. And so what I passed off is, well, if we get her as a baby, she's going to be clean, so to speak, and not have any issues. I didn't understand fully what the impact that the short time that she was in care and coming up would have on her life. But that's where our Village 127 community has been amazing with helping to educate and to give tools. So I guess that would be my thing is
That's
that,
great.
People would ask us when they'd see behaviors, and they'd say, well, how old was she when she came to you? And we'd say 2 months. And you could almost see them like in their brains going, oh, well, then it must be your parenting, because she's been with you since a baby. But just understanding that the way the brain is wired is just different in these kids, and they require just some extra attention, some redirection, just a different style of parenting than we were used to. And we have 3 older kids we've parented before, and it's just a different kind of parenting, and we're learning it all over again.
Isn't it amazing the effect that can have so early on? I mean that would be a huge blind spot for me too. It's like you don't consider like some of the trauma that a baby can feel and present. That needs to be worked through, especially as you get older, you learn more about your background. I mean, there's so much that you have to work through.
God's faithfulness in us moving here, knowing that we would need a community though, like Village, is just, it's amazing. We've gone through some difficult situations even here where we just needed some help, like some guidance. We've never run into this before. This was said, or we're having this issue at school or something. And to see people just kind of come around you and say, hey, I've been there. And we're going to pray for you. But let's get together. Let's talk a little bit about it. This is what it's, man, what a blessing.
It's a lifeline.
Here we are kind of thinking there's a little, we're kind of putting a little pin on a map and saying this is where we're going to be. And God orchestrated all of these amazing things.
Unreal. So, man, there's so much that we could talk about. We started with talking about your marriage a little bit. When you think about some of the heavy things that we've discussed, right? I mean, your entire home environment shifts, and your rhythms change. What you're used to with now, most of your kids are grown, and your youngest was 15 at the time, right? When you started this process. So I mean, you're kind of at a sweet spot. The other ones are out of the house. You're at that spot now where it's like you're cruising a little bit. Your marriage is good. Your best friends, everything's great. What's the effect on your marriage when you start thinking about, man, our whole, we're in it together. We believe God's called us to do it, but our whole life just changed. Like what is the impact there on your marriage? I mean, the good, the bad, the ugly. Tell me how the Lord has used fostering and adoption now, because that's part of your story as well, in your marriage.
I would say it's been a wonderful ministry to partner together, to be involved in. And we've seen our kids, our kids were 15 and 22 and 24 when Maisie came to stay with us. And, we had her during COVID and everybody was home. And it was just such, as a mom, to see our teenagers and 20-somethings stepping up, and they were changing diapers and loving on
Excited.
these kids.
Yeah,
And
that's so cool.
And it has changed their perspective now. Yeah. Each one of them have talked about fostering and adopting in their own lives. So it was just a beautiful thing. I think as a parent, you worry how fostering or adoption is going to affect your family, because it's a disruption, it's a change.
Yeah.
And, certainly there have been some challenges, but so much sweetness has come from it. And I think in our marriage, we've just learned to depend on the Lord. Trust his sovereign plan, and understanding that we can do our best efforts and God calls us to be faithful, but we have to trust him for the results.
Yes.
And there's no guarantees that any of our kids are going to turn out to love the Lord with all their heart, but it's our job to just plant those seeds and to stay faithful every single day, and in our marriage to rely on each other as we rely on the Lord to kind of look for spots. Brett can tell when I've hit the end of my day, and he'll like, let me put her to bed tonight, because you can tell when I've, just need a minute.
Yeah. Good job, Brett.
I'm on a minute.
Yes, man. Yeah.
But it's easy to look. Certainly in the beginning, I remember weighing those sacrifices. What is this going to look like?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, it's so easy to live a life of comfort. Truth is, I do, for the most part, live a very comfortable life. And I remember at one point thinking, Lord, if this is one thing I can, as I stand before you someday, I said, I did this for you. But isn't it just like God to say, okay, great, but look at the blessing that you're getting.
Right.
Like the joy of Maisie makes us laugh. Like you just, some of the things she says, I don't know where she gets it from. She's a joy. And there's hard moments, and there's times that we're like, oh, it'd be great to go out on a Friday night and date night or do something. But but God brings just such joy in it's. And it's neat to say. I love seeing Carrie as a mom. She's an awesome mom, and she's, it's
and grandma.
And grandma.
grandma.
Yeah, well, Nina.
Are you
we have to be
grandma?
careful.
No,
It's
not
Nina.
grandma.
Nina.
Yeah, we got to be
Okay.
careful with that.
Got it.
We have a 6-year-old. I'm a Nina.
So
We've got a Meemaw and a Mawmaw, so we're real
Mawmaw.
traditional.
Oh, wow.
We're
Yeah.
both of those.
and think about how cool it is that Maisie is an aunt at 6 years old. How
It's
cool is
amazing.
that? So,
Yeah, man.
So it's
my mom's actually older than her aunt, so that's kind of how they
Oh,
grew up in
wow.
that same environment. So it is cool. It's like, man, this is the coolest thing ever. And she's my great aunt. She's younger than my mom, which
Oh,
is
wow.
it's awesome. So anyway,
That's cool.
I love to hear that, and it's amazing how the Lord can use hard things that you go through, right? And I'm not calling this hard in many respects, but just generally speaking, hard things that you walk through to even knit you closer as a married couple. And I'm sure some of that has happened in your life too. It's like an utter dependence on the Lord together.
Yep.
Of like, we need you.
Yeah.
And man, there's going to be days where I'm feeling low, and that's where like a marriage is so beautiful, because when I'm feeling low, it may be the day that you're going to help come alongside of me and help build me up, and then vice versa, right? When hey, I need a little help putting her in bed tonight, kind of thing. It's like, okay, like glad to do that, glad to step in, and the Lord can use those moments to shape you and mold you and knit you together in an even deeper way than you were before. And you may not have even anticipated that prior to going into this, but man, that the Lord would use what you're walking through to make it even stronger and like a brighter fire is a beautiful gift, because number one, you get to experience that, but number two, when you're discipling others who are thinking about this journey and they have some of those questions of, well, how is this going to impact my life? Things feel pretty much in place, and still things are chaos. And so I don't know that I could step into, and you're able to say, okay, yeah, I get it. I was there too, but let me like testify of what the Lord has done in us through this process. And it's been such a gift. So thank you for sharing that. One of the things I wanted to ask, Brett, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, and I could feel myself welling up whenever you said it, because I can't imagine walking through this part of fostering. And I think it's a genuine concern for a lot of people. It's that closeness that you get, right? So you have a placement, the two boys that you had for 4 months, and then dropping them off at the women's shelter. You said, man, just as a man, I've never broke down like that before. That emotional tension of, man, I love this child who I know is likely not going to stay. How do you do it anyway? Like how do you plow through that and say, man, like I have to still offer the love that God has given me to these children who need it, knowing that it's going to kill me to give them back.
I wish there was a perfect formula
Yeah.
to offer. It's hard, but if you don't feel that way, you're doing something wrong. I often wondered, is it possible to love these children like you love your own? And I can say yes without any hesitation. In fact, my three older kids would say Maisie is by far my favorite, just so you know.
Yes.
But
That tells me what kind of relationship you have with your kids, because I love that. That's exactly how mine would be with my kids too. Yeah, that's awesome.
but it's hard, and really it comes down to just trusting in God as the ultimate father and saying, me as an imperfect father, I'm going to do what I can to love these children for as long as God puts them in our care, and then to pray for them when they leave. And but it's hard. There's not much that can be done to make that less hard.
Yeah. Carrie, what about you? A mother's heart, that attachment, I'm sure, happens so quickly. How do you navigate some of that emotional tension?
It's hard. Like Brett said, there's no way around it. But if you're loving them well, it is going to hurt when they leave. And just trusting in the sovereignty of God, that when it's time for them to leave, we have to trust that God, as Brett mentioned, is the ultimate father, and he will care for them. And just like Brett said, continuing to pray for them and, think about them. And but it doesn't make it easier.
Sure.
It's definitely hard.
That's really good.
We'll say one of the stone moments for me, the stones of remembrance.
Yeah.
Is that call or that text message that Carrie got from this mother who wanted to come to church with us. And I remember thinking,
thank you,
wow,
Jesus.
thank you, Jesus. That's I can't tell you what a moment that was.
Yeah, it's funny how the Lord uses that too to affirm what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Because as difficult as that was, I'd imagine, even if it's somewhere, in the back of your brain, I'd imagine you have thoughts of like, I can't do this again.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I can't get there emotionally again. But it's funny how the Lord will use those things to say, man, like affirmation, you're doing the right thing.
But that's where the step comes in, because that was exactly where I was at when the boys got dropped off. I think I even said to Carrie, I can't do this again. This is too difficult. And that's where the wisdom of my wife and saying, maybe we don't do that right out of the gate, but let's do respite. Let's just give a weekend every once in a while and just give somebody else some relief. And
Ended in adoption.
God's like, we're going to do this your way or my way, but either way,
It's happening.
Exactly.
That's right.
That's so good. That's so good. Man, I love it. So what do you wish every church or community understood about foster families? What's something you're like, man, I wish you got this. Foster Care Awareness Month. Like, what's one thing that you wish every church or community understood about foster families?
Well, one thing we hear often, and it's a pet peeve. It bothers me every time. Is people will talk to us and they'll say something like, "Wow, you are amazing people. We could never do what you're doing."
Yeah.
And we often feel so inadequate.
Yeah.
We're not perfect parents. Trust me. You can do a podcast with our older children and find out some things. But, honestly,
I'm thinking about doing that, actually. This is going to be fun.
But, the truth is, you go through times where you feel like you're just failing. You're not doing. So I'm thankful that Scripture's filled with imperfect people, ordinary people that God uses. And that's how we feel our story is. We want people to recognize we are as ordinary as they come.
Yeah, man.
And God has just given us great opportunity but walked with us every step of the way.
Yeah, come on. I love it.
Yep.
I love thinking about the scriptures too. It talks about the one another's, right? Like we're in this together. And as believers, especially, I remember several years back, I was leading this is my previous church. I was leading our church through it was a month of fasting and prayer. And we were rallying around foster care and adoption because the need in our county, just like I think every county. So great.
Yep.
And we recognize, man, as a church, we have influence here. What are some things that we, number one, can do, but number two, should do? And we thought, let's begin with fasting and prayer. Let's start there. And the rhetoric that you mentioned I think is what rose to the top at the beginning of that thing was like, man, we know the needs there. We just don't, we're not that caliber person. Meaning like some people are wired to do this, not us, right? But if everyone feels that way, it's not going to get done.
Yeah.
Which again, we see some of those gaps now that are so heavy and so strong. So yeah, when I think about it, I think it's so critical to start at that place of like genuinely like seeking the Lord and knowing that, okay, Lord, I don't have the ability in and of myself. But the good news is, number one, I have the Spirit of God in me as a believer. Like we're all over that in the book of Acts right now. That's we're living in that space. Yeah. But then number two, those one another's, right? Like we're doing this together as a body of Christ. You mentioned the army that you had back home in your little church back home, and then in your family that the Lord has blessed you with. And man, every believer should feel that way. And you know, we want to be intentional, obviously, here. That's why we have the Village 127 ministry. We're trying to be really intentional with that. But the reality is every Christian has that. You know, if we would just come alongside of one another and serve together, serve one another, care for one another, love one another, it helps to establish the army that's needed, the village that's needed to do this well. And so I love your encouragement there, because there may be some folks listening to this that press play that have never considered fostering, ever, not once. But throughout this podcast, what they're doing is they're creating like this mental picture of what it could look like for them. But there's probably that voice in their brain saying, but it's not real. Right? Because you probably went through similar things in your journey. At least it sounds like you did. And so what would you say to someone who feels that tug, right? They heard that sermon, Carrie. They heard the preacher talk about it, and they've got questions, right? Or they're listening to this podcast or whatever. What would you say to that person that feels the tug toward fostering, but when it comes to that next step, which for you guys was going to the library and let's do the orientation thing, let's figure it out. You actually took the step. What would you say to the person that's afraid to take the step?
I would say, in Francis Chan's words, err on the side of action. Yeah. If you're feeling that tug, why not? Like, what's the worst that can happen? If you take a step in faith, it's not like the Lord is going to punish you for taking that step. Yeah. So take a step. And at each point, when we would look at each other at each step and go, are you freaked out? Am I freaked out? Are we going to take the next step? Like, we kind of checked with each other to say, okay, I'm good, you're good. Let's do the next step. And every single time we would just stop and pray and say, okay, Lord, is this what you want us to do? And each time was the Holy Spirit just nudging, like, just keep going. And that's what I would say. And you know, people aren't sure. There's a lot of ways to get involved. I mean, Village 127, we have the most awesome volunteers that come out once a month, and they watch our kiddos, and they cook a meal for us and allow us to be able to sit across the table from another family and share stories.
Incredible.
Come to a village meeting. You know, be around foster parents, be around foster kids and adopted kids, and see what it's like. I mean, foster families aren't scary. They're just normal people. Yeah. And they, you know, I would say that would be my advice.
That's good.
The only thing I'll add to that is just this week, I was reading 1 Corinthians 14. And there's a verse that says, for God is not a God of confusion, but a God of peace. Yep. Even though that is maybe a little out of context because it's like talking about tongues and some other things. Yeah. But it's true in our journey. You know, certainly there's times of uncertainty and not sure what the next step is or what you're doing, but God's plan was never to confuse us. Yeah. He wants us to get to ultimately where he's trying to lead us, and he's going to give us peace. And there were times that, you know, we talk about the peace that passes all understanding. There's times in the midst of this, I'm like,
we've got 2 babies and 3 kids, and
but we're okay.
Right.
You know, there's
calm
some
in the middle of the storm.
Yeah, there's some calm there that you know we felt, and I just thought
that's such a good word. Yeah, thank you guys for sharing that. I think that's great. Just for the practicalities of it, when does Village 127 meet, and how can the listener, like, what do they need to do to show up to that?
Yeah, so the first Tuesday of every month, we've got one more meeting left in May, and then we've got an awesome Sky Zone event that we're renting out the whole place in June for all of our village families and volunteers. But yeah, contact Sarah Meadows.
Okay.
She's our point of contact.
Awesome. Yeah, Sarah's amazing.
She's incredible.
Yeah, I don't think I tell her enough. I try to shout her out as often as I can, but I don't think I tell her enough personally. And we're actually in their life group, which has been a real sweet thing for my wife and I. But man, she's just incredible. Her passion,
Incredible.
unreal, just unmatched. I'm really grateful. We share, which I don't get to make all of our. They're on Wednesday. We meet on Wednesday nights for life groups. I don't get to make all of them, but I think everyone that I've attended, we're fairly new to the group. I think everyone that I've attended during the prayer request / praise reports has to do with foster and adoption.
Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me.
And she's like, I know you're tired of hearing this. I'm like, we're not. Like, keep telling us,
That's great.
But it's just incredible to witness what the Lord's birthed in her and how she's leveraging the gift that God has given her. So they can just show up, right, Carrie?
Just show up.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a link on our website. If you go to the Village 127 tab, just fill out an interest form and let us know you're coming so we can make sure we have enough food for everybody. But we'd love to have anybody who's any level of interest. And often Wake County will come to our meetings and they'll do an interest meeting, kind of like the one Brett and I attended at our library. And it's just hey, let's ask our questions.
Yeah.
I had a lot of false assumptions, like you had to have a certain type of family, your kids had to be a certain age, you had to have a certain type of house, a certain degree, all of those things that you put up roadblocks. Satan does because he doesn't want you to step forward.
Sure.
But just ask your questions. But often, like I said, Wake County will be at those meetings and you can get all of your questions answered there.
Perfect. I love all that. So don't be discouraged. Don't be afraid. Don't allow any, barrier to keep you from taking that next step because as Brett and Carrie said, man, and I'm sitting across from them, I can testify, they're just normal people. All right. So like I had a friend tell me one time, he was talking about how missionaries are a little strange. All of them are a little odd. And so I was telling Pastor Drew that. Do you guys remember Pastor Drew? Did you meet him before he left?
We did not know
No.
Okay,
Pastor
so
Drew.
he was our missions pastor. He moved to Texas recently, or the last few years. He and I went to college together, a good friend of mine. So he was a missionary. He was an IMB missionary. He and his wife lived overseas for years. And I was like, hey, man, this guy told me like all missionaries are a little bit odd. He's like, dude, we're all weird. So, hey, I can't speak for missionaries, but I can tell you foster care families, they're not. All right.
Weird.
So, man, listen, just want to encourage each person that's listening to this. If you want to take a next step, if you have any questions, would love for you to connect. And Sarah Meadows is a great first tier for that. So on our website, apexbaptist.org, just go to our staff chart. She serves with us. She's amazing. Click her email on there and shoot her a message. That'd be awesome. All right. So what's a hope or prayer that you can carry for the foster community, that you carry for the foster community in our area? What's kind of a hope that you have, prayer that you have for the foster community in our area? What would you say?
I think it would be that they would all feel seen and loved and feel part of a community.
Yeah.
I can't imagine if we were still back in New York without the community around us and trying to do this alone. It's very isolating when you're a foster parent and you don't have any support. And so my prayer is that if you're out there and you're a foster parent and you aren't connected to a community, you need to.
Love it.
I would just add to that, Village 127 has been so important in our journey. I love that we're trying to help other churches start their own version of it. Man, if you'll need a village, you'll need a village. And I love Sarah's heart and the village's heart just to say we want people to feel like they're not in this alone.
There you go, man. I love it. So if you're listening to this, make that a prayer point of your day today. As you're driving, just take a few moments and pray that way today. Would love to do that. Hey, Brett, Carrie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Before we close, I have some really important questions to ask you. It'll be fast. It's rapid fire.
Oh, boy. All right.
Rapid fire, super easy. All right, but the listeners really need to know. Okay?
Okay.
Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right, so Carrie, we'll start with you. Favorite food?
Ooh, pizza.
Pizza? Where's your favorite pizza joint?
Okay, well, around here, so we're from New York. We've only been here 2 years, but I would say Garibaldi's in Fuquay.
Yeah, it's
great
good.
margarita pizza.
Yeah.
Also Anna's.
Oh, you like Anna's?
We
Yeah,
like
I like
Anna's,
Anna's too.
yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I love both of those.
Yeah.
I'm a
or
pizza
homemade.
fan.
We have a pizza oven, so we also
No
make
way.
our own.
Come on. What kind of crust?
wood-fired homemade
Okay.
crust.
Oh,
Yeah.
that sounds amazing. I love it. I love it. Brett, what about you?
You know,
Favorite
I,
pizza?
I would have said pizza, but I'm going to go cheeseburgers. Nothing like
Oh,
a
okay.
nothing like a good cheeseburger.
Yeah. I was recently talking to Pastor Nathan. That's his favorite all time.
Yeah.
Food. Yep.
Yeah.
Just a burger, man. That's
We have
what he
that
wants.
question: if you could only choose cheeseburgers or pizza, and the other, it'd be calorie free for the rest of your life. What
Oh,
would
wow.
you pick? And I just go to cheeseburgers. I
Yeah.
don't know,
Okay.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
cheeseburgers.
I love that. So every year, my family gives me, I don't know, roughly half of a cow, and it's the
Ooh.
best thing ever. So my dad, for years, he worked on a cattle ranch, and he did a lot of different things on that ranch, but he did some cowboying too. And he's old and decrepit now. he's not that old. You can tell what kind of relationship we have too. But
Yeah,
but he I mean, he still goes to the local ranch that he worked on. I think almost every week, has lunch with the guy that owns it, and they, instead of horseback, they're in a truck, like cruising cattle, because they're both old now.
Yeah.
But Brett's the best thing ever, man. Like, number one, beef is high,
Oh, yeah.
money wise, and so it's free. So that's number one. It tastes really good. But that homegrown, man, you need to have a burger at my house. I'm telling you.
All right, all right.
Yeah, it's
Bring it.
There's something to. It's not because I'm not a great cook. The beef speaks for itself.
Okay, all right.
But I'm a big pizza fan. Matter of fact, we had for the first time we had mellow mushroom pizza. You guys
Yeah,
ever
well,
eat
I've
that?
heard of it.
Haven't
There's
tried
one in
it.
Holly Springs, so we had a baseball game, and we cruised into Mellow Mushroom, and shout out to Mellow Mushroom. I don't know anything about them, but their pizza was awesome.
Really?
Ooh.
Oh, it was so good.
Put it on the list.
Yeah,
Good to
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Try it.
Good to know.
All right. So next question: favorite movie, Carrie,
Ooh,
all time.
13 going on 30.
Oh yeah,
I love
okay.
that movie.
Okay, yeah. All right, so I'm trying to picture what that one. I know I've watched it. That's not the one with Zac Efron, is it?
Jennifer Garner.
Jennifer Garner,
And
okay.
Goes
Yeah.
back to being 13.
Yes, I remember it now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
cute.
that's good. That's good. Awesome.
I was gonna say that is definitely not. No, that is definitely not it. No, that's definitely not it.
Notebook.
Shout out to my son who introduced us to Pursuit of Happiness again. You ever see that
Oh,
movie with Will Smith?
Yeah.
Love that movie.
It's been a really long time if I have
It's
seen
a
it.
great movie to watch
He's
again.
homeless and something.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay. I do
awesome
remember,
movie. But I like Gladiator, Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
There are
real
a
man.
lot of those movies. But Pursuit of Happiness, that was a great movie.
Yeah, man.
Shawshank Redemption. I could keep going.
Oh, come on.
He's a
Yeah.
Good
movie
ones.
guy.
There's some good
Yeah.
ones.
That's awesome. We don't watch a ton of movies. The Patriot's probably my all-time
that's
favorite.
great.
Do you guys remember that one?
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely,
Yep.
Mel Gibson.
I just like history, and I don't know how accurate it is. I mean, obviously that storyline in and of itself is probably not real, but like I felt like I was, man, I'm there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Like it felt accurate to how it would have, been.
Yeah.
That
in the
movie
battle.
was the first movie I watched when I set up surround sound in our basement, and that, to your point, like that movie came to life.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Love it. Love it. Okay, 2 more questions. First of all, do you read books outside the Bible? I know you read the Bible. You guys do you like
I'm
to
a
read?
wannabe book reader. I have a
Okay.
stack.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm
similar.
not very good
yeah.
at following through.
Yeah, I have a stack too. So do you have an all-time favorite book that you read?
You know, a few years ago, somebody at church hooked me on the Mark of the Lion series with Francine Rivers.
Okay.
And it was the first book I remember reading that I couldn't put down. It's
Wow.
a trilogy book, but it's
Okay.
like a narrative fiction.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's really good. It's
Love
a
it.
really good series.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it. That's new to me. Okay, awesome. It's really cool when you can find a book you can't
Historical
put down.
fiction.
Historical
That's the
fiction.
word
that's
I'm
my
looking for.
that's my favorite
Yep.
genre.
Yep. So
It's historical
It takes
fiction,
place
yeah.
in Bible times,
Yeah.
but it's like a story woven through. It's very good.
That's all. That's probably why I like The Patriot. Like I like historical fiction.
Yeah.
You know, like make it exciting, but I want to
Yeah.
feel like I'm really there.
Yeah.
it really happened. You
Uh-huh,
know,
right.
That's so I like. This is a confession that a lot of people don't like about me. I've never seen Star Wars or like Lord of the Rings or any of that kind of stuff
Ooh.
because I can't get there in my brain. I'm like, I don't know how I can't
Yeah.
get there, and like no shade on anybody that loves it, but like I've tried, and I'm like I don't understand it. But if I can picture that it could really happen, like
Yep.
give me a cool storyline in the midst of it, I'm all in. Yeah. All right, Brett. What about you? Are you a reader?
Would love to be more of a reader,
Yeah.
but yeah, I would say my favorite book, Heaven by Randy Alcorn. Have you read that?
Yeah, dude,
Oh,
so good.
great. You know,
It's
just
so good.
Just to get excited about maybe it's not clearly written in scripture, but to just kind of use your imagination a bit to see what eternity is going to be like. It's just awesome.
That book's amazing.
Yeah.
If you haven't read it, read it. Like if you're listening to this, read that book. It's really good. Heaven by Randy Alcorn. Yeah. Awesome. All right, last one. This is it. This is pretty simple. You have a favorite Bible verse? All-time favorite Bible verse? You don't have to quote it exactly, just favorite Bible verse.
I would say that God can do exceedingly abundantly above all that we can ask or think.
Amen.
And we've seen him do that
Yes.
over and over.
Come on.
Yeah.
Love it.
I mean, obviously, there's so many different ones. But I would say, I know the plans I have
Yes.
for you. That's just such a, there's so many scriptures that are so personal.
Yeah.
And kind of trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding.
That's right.
Man, I have to tell myself that all the time because
Yes.
I want to lean on my own understanding.
Same.
And then to remind
Same.
myself to acknowledge him in everything.
Yeah. He's the one that makes your paths straight. Yep.
Amen. Yeah.
That's good, man. Hey, thank you guys for your time. I think this is going to be real edifying for everybody that's listening. So I appreciate you being here. Number one, I appreciate your investment to prep for today. I also appreciate your investment in the kingdom and your care for the orphan, your care for the one who needs someone to stand in the gap. And the assumption by so many is someone else will do it, and you didn't make that assumption. You stood in the gap, and just as ordinary people. And the Lord has empowered you in His Spirit to do that work, and you're continuing to do that work. So praise God for you. And again, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you for listening. I hope you have an incredible week. God bless you.